Hello, welcome back to another Swans Cast match preview. I was going to say podcast then, but it's not a podcast. I'm joined by Dan from the Wednesday week. So welcome, Dan, back to the channel. You've been, your channel and our channel have had a few interactions, I think, in the past. I don't know if it's your first time here or if you've been here before. I can't quite remember if it was Stevie the last few times.
I think you and I met each other last season, but I think this is about your fourth run out on our show.
Yeah,
yours,
it's been a few now. Yeah, it's been a few times. But welcome back anyway, Dan. We just spoke obviously in your version of this video. So can you just tell everyone where they can find your content, please, if they want to go and check that out?
My sincerest apologies. My earphones cut out just as you asked me that question. Could you go again?
That's okay. Can you just tell everyone where they can find the Wednesday week if they want to check
out
your content?
It's at TWWcast or at TWW Podcast. We have a link tree on our socials if you take a look there.
Brilliant. So go check that out. Like I said, we've just done this video, but the flip of it, to be honest, it's just me talking about how bad Swansea's form and transfer window was.
Oh.
But now we'll find out about Sheffield Wednesdays instead. Maybe it'll make us feel better or maybe it won't. So January, before we get to January, let's have a quick overview. How's your season been so far? Because you're sitting currently in 11th position. Mm-hmm. Is that where you kind of expected to be? Like, what would you make of your season up to now?
It's all relative, isn't it? It's like if you ask a Nottingham Forest fan about the Champions League, they try and remain all tight-lipped and stoic about it. Where they go, "No, I'll be really happy if we just if we finish like 10th." You know what I mean? Shut up, you'd be gutted, right? Because it all depends on how the season pans out, and it's kind of the same with us because every time we've been on the verge of the playoffs, we've always been 1 point or 2 points off the playoffs. The last couple of months, we always seem to drop our arse against somebody. And it's starting to get really frustrating. However, it is quite nice being a mid-table team because after the way that last season went and staying up officially on the last day, you're kind of like, yeah, this is a good season. This is okay. On the whole, by the end of the season, you'll go, yeah, I'm all right with that. I'm all right with like 10th, 11th. If that's the way it finishes, then great. I'm not in any kind of relegation danger. We're not looking up at the big boys and their parachute payments. We're okay. We're all right. It's kind of fun being one of those mid-table teams because, as we just discussed, there's an element of could win 4-0, could get battered.
We were in the same boat like a month ago, but unfortunately we dropped off a little bit more. So hopefully we'll be back in a couple of weeks, but we'll have to see. Had a good result on the weekend, but let's see if we can carry it on when we do come up to your place. I think it would be a big game for us. Let's talk about January then. So you said you've been knocking on the door of the playoffs. So have you gone out to try and search for some talent to make that jump? Or has it been a bit disappointing?
To give you some backstory, it got to around the middle of January and everybody's up in arms. Why haven't we signed anybody? And we know that January is a bit difficult to sign players because everybody's waiting. Everybody's waiting for the best deal. Everybody's waiting for more money. Everybody's kind of holding their nerve a little bit. They don't want to play the cards too early. And we see a lot of the business get done on the day before or transfer deadline day, as we've seen over the number of years. I think the days are gone of those big, massive Fernando Torres transfers that we used to see and Andy Carroll moving for exorbitant amounts of money. I think they've gone. But in terms of the Championship, it's quite exciting because they'll be waiting on whether this geezer stays on loan at the Premier League clubs. Will be like, does this bloke stay there? And then we move him in. And then do we need to do this and that type of... And it's exciting to be in and around unless you're on the receiving end of it. So one of our standout players this year has been Shea Charles. And during the fans forum meeting that we had with the chairman, where he was trying to tell us that him and the manager haven't spoken in 2 months because Southampton, showed an interest in trying to sign Danny Roll from us to get the manager. And they recalled Shea Charles on paper. They went, look, we're taking him back. You've got a week. And then on the final day, after falling out with all the fans prior, our chairman put his hand in his pocket and paid something like 250k to extend his loan. Essentially, Southampton called him back, touted him out, unless you pay some money. So we paid it. And then we've got Shea Charles till the end of the season now, which is really, really encouraging. He's him next to Bannon has really helped Bannon be the better player that we know it can be. Because sometimes when he gets a bit frustrated, he drops too deep, puts in a few rash tackles, and isn't as useful as what he can be when he's further up the pitch. In terms of January signings, towards the very end of the January transfer window, we signed Stuart Armstrong, ex Southampton again, and Celtic midfielder, who was at the Vancouver Whitecaps for some unbeknownst reason. He was out there. He's amassed some decent transfer spend throughout his career, and we've managed to snap him up, which is really exciting. I mean, albeit he's 32, but this is Championship football, right? And then, as much as we like to moan about Southampton playing wrongen with the loan of Shea Charles, we kind of did exactly the same to Plymouth. There was an element of there was a player, Ibrahim Sissoko, or Sissoko, depending on how you pronounce it, or if you read the back of his shirt from the first game of the season at Hillsborough, Isako. He was there. He was one of their more exciting players, and Toulouse recalled him in January, and we snapped him up. He didn't even leave the country. So essentially, what we were whinging about Southampton doing to us with Shea Charles, we did it to Plymouth. However, since then, Plymouth have got their first win in Christ knows when, and then also went on to beat Liverpool in the cup yesterday. So it kind of says a lot about the player that they just let go, right?
Yeah, that's a crazy result for them to win. Is it the player, or is it the post-Wayne Rooney era thriving, potentially? Who knows?
I think the two things are hand in hand there, because Wayne Rooney is as motivating as a cabbage.
Also, I just want to correct something I said earlier. Obviously, this is going to be played in the Swansea Stadium, not away. I did say earlier we were going up to your place. I know that's not the case, and I should know better.
I'm glad you've managed to remember that on air, because the amount of times I'll say something stupid and I can't sleep now, because you know what the internet's like.
I think you just said Hillsborough, and I was like, hang on, we've been away this season. Why have I said we're going away?
Yeah.
And then I was like, I've got a ticket to the game. What am I on about? Bit of a. It's been a long day in work.
It is Monday.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay, so January being, net positive, I guess, for yourselves. Keeping Shea being a bit of a big deal. I guess you would have had a big hole in the midfield had he gone. We kind of experienced losing Matt Grimes, I guess you could say. We did obviously bring someone in, but not as like for like as perhaps you want in January. Depends what sort of side of the fence you sit on. Were you going to change probably the way we play a little bit now? And it could work, but it's not ideal, is it, for this time of the season? But there we go. Any big outgoings to be aware of other than what you've just spoke about?
We're really bad at the outgoings. I feel that we need to start. A lot of people would use the sentence offloading deadwood, but we don't have deadwood. We have our squad and we rotate it. It's as simple as that. However, we do have a couple of assets that I feel that we should be looking at cashing in on. So the most notable is Pierce Charles, Shea Charles's brother, Northern Irish keeper. Stock is very high right now. However, he's playing second fiddle to our on-loan keeper, James Beadle, that we've got from Brighton for this season and last. I feel that there are other goalkeepers out there of James Beadle's ilk that would keep Pierce Charles out of the squad, who, like I say, is coming on the cup games. He's a fully fledged international. I think we should cash in, but we still don't pull the trigger on that. For some reason, we're really bad at withholding players, and it's starting to affect. Well, it has been for a number of years. It affects how much we've got able to spend in terms of the PSR rules, right? Yeah. And the other one was Michael Smith, a guy who can't seem to buy a start from our manager. I don't know why, because when he comes on, he scores goals. That's what he does. I must admit, he's having a great season for us. One of the best he's had for us, especially in the Championship as well. And Wrexham expressed an interest in him in January, and the sum of 500k was touted around. Me, I'd have snapped the hand off. If we're not playing him, let's not ruin the geezer's career, and let's give him a payday before he retires. However, he's the one that I would miss the most if it was down to selling one of those two, because I kind of like him. There's something Sunday League about him that I really enjoy. You know, he could start a fight in a phone box, could Smudge, and I like that type of player, right?
Yeah, I mean, he looked like he started the last game, but I'd imagine maybe not all the time then, from what you're saying. So does that mean maybe Jamal Lowe is quite often getting that berth up front?
So Jamal Lowe, on the whole, has been starting. So we spent actual money on a striker that we had on loan last season, on a striker called Ike Ugbo, and he has gone on a 30-game barren spell from the back end of last season to the early part of this season. He just can't buy a goal. There was even one notable match where he kind of moved his head out the way of the ball. He was bloody awful. So since we've finally pulled the trigger on dropping him, Jamal Lowe has been starting and doing a lot of the running. Like he harries down defenders, he works hard, he grafts. I like his work rate. However, he's not sticking the ball in the back of the net. So, but I feel that that's his job, to try and tire them out. There's been a lot of games this season where we've come back from losing positions because we're quite pedestrian in the first half, and then go three cockerels to the country file on the second half. So, you know, there's an element of that might be our game plan. All right, Lowe's not hitting the net, but he will give your defenders a bit of a hard time.
I mean, we know all about Jamal Lowe. He can go on a mazy run sometimes, and I'm surprised he wasn't as prolific for us in the last time he was here than he was the first time. I do think he's lost a little bit of his instinct and yard of pace, but probably wouldn't have been a bad signing for us to maintain if we kept him in the summer. So I can see him doing a job. And yeah, I think I don't know if forwards, like strikers, his best position. I think he's a player that perhaps benefits from being off the striker, maybe not the main focal point, because then he can go on these runs probably and get a bit more space.
But in that position, we've got players like Windass and Jenny Gassama, however you want to pronounce it, and they're having the season of their lives right now. They're doing that, you know, they're two of our best performing players. So if he wants that berth, he's going to have to out some pretty high potential there.
Yeah, I don't think he would oust anyone. I don't think he's going to get played there. I think he's one of them players that he was a winger, did a job up front a few times, and then he's kind of just got stuck.
Fine, I'll stay here then. Yeah. Like Ronaldo, he was a winger at one point. Yeah. Jamal Lowe might be the new Ronaldo. Clip that.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see where that goes. So can we expect anything different when we come up against you this time in terms of how you play compared to what we saw earlier this season?
I think it's going to be exactly the same as the way we turned out last week at home. It's going to be slow, pedestrian, shit kicky first half.
I think it was quite a dull game earlier this season when we played you, to be honest.
God, it just never got going. It was bloody awful. It was like a 12-hour day for me, and I absolutely hated life. I got home at like 2 a.m. and went, all that for a 0-0 draw against bloody Swansea. No disrespect, but a 0-0 draw against anybody.
It felt the same. Like, it was kind of dull. It just nothing really seemed to happen. Neither team seemed to really turn up.
Yeah, it was exactly that. But the upcoming game, it'll be a slow pedestrian start from Sheffield Wednesday. Pass, try and break down, try and harry on the defenders, find out the weak spots, and then something happens in the second half. I don't know what switches, but all of a sudden it's attack, and then it turns into Kevin Keegan in the 90s. We're going to win 5-4.
I mean, our second halves have been pretty poor, to be honest. I think I'd be shocked to see we're not the worst team for conceding goals in the second half. I don't know what it is. No matter how established we seem to be in the game, something happens, especially after like 60 minutes, that we just seem to fall apart. It was all right in the last game, but it's been a bit of a worrying trend for a lot of the season. Even when we were performing quite well early the season, and I said on your video that we'd only lost about one goal maximum, quite often we lost winning positions or drawing positions, you know, to either be a drawing position or losing position in that second half from an area that seemed totally dominant because we weren't scoring enough when we were on top as well. So like I said, when we're only losing by one goal, you're always in the game. A lot of the time back then, we were also only winning by one goal, so the opposition was still in the game. So yeah, that's been our season so far. Okay, brilliant. So who would you say Swans fans should look out for as the danger men to be worried for in this game?
Again, so I've been saying this for 10 years doing this podcast. It's always easy to say Barry Bannon because we know what he can do with the ball. However, this time round, Jedi Gassama is going to be an absolute megastar. That geezer has got the world at his feet. He came in as a raw 19-year-old kid from Paris Saint-Germain. And we all thought, well, you know, he's played with Lionel Messi. He's going to be mustard. And what we had was a geezer who couldn't really deal with the rough and tumble, you know, the physicality side of the of English football. And that was last season. This season, he's become a bit more rough and ready. If I had any critique, he needs to give up the ball a little bit quicker. But I don't know what he's been told in the dressing room. Does he keep hold of it? But there's none of that getting to the byline and whipping it in. He gets to the byline, can beat 3 men when he does it, and then just tries to force his way across the byline. Bro, give it up. We've got Michael Smith there, built like a telegraph pole. Give it him. Give it him. He's built like an 8-dimple Lego brick. Give it him. What's the matter with you? But apart from that, this geezer's going to be big news, I think.
So he's going to be starting on the left wing, I'd imagine, yeah?
Yeah. So he'll be on the left, and then across that line, you'll have probably Windass, maybe Masaba, depending if he plays Svante Ingelsson or not. Our secondary strike attacking midfield tends to change quite significantly depending on form, which is quite a nice place to be in, I guess.
So we'd probably be up against Josh Keogh. Well, I'm not sure. He didn't start the last game. I'd imagine he gets rotated back in, but we'll have to see, I guess. He's been changing the system, so we've done 2 games with 5 at the back, but different players in the wing back roles. So it'll be interesting to see anyway which direction he goes midweek. Okay, can I grab a prediction from you going into this one then?
1-1. Hundy P 1-1. It's going to be ridiculous. You're going to score in the first half, and we're going to knock on the door for the following 45 minutes, and then we're going to get one after the 80th minute. Oh, I've now said it out loud. I'm going to have to put money on that, aren't I?
I mean, we've seen that happen a lot this season, as I just explained. So that sounds very plausible to me. I'd probably be a good value bet, which means it's going to be a 0-0 again now. So
just tick the draw box and move on. Put a 5-hold on. You'll be all right.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for joining me, Dan, for this preview. If you can remind everyone where they can find your content again.
At TWWcast on X, and there's a Linktree link to everything we do. It's got TikToks, it's got Instagram. We're so down with the kids nowadays, even doing TikToks now, and you can clearly tell it's a TikTok managed by a 45-year-old man-child.
Is that obvious? I'll have to go and have a look. Thanks for joining me again. Good luck for the rest of the season, of course, after this one. And I guess we'll see you again next season, fingers crossed, as long as our season doesn't capitulate any more than January did. So, have a good one, and I'll catch you again soon.
See you later.